First, before my talk, just a quick announce. We found a camera, so if you think it's yours, you just need to ask to the organization, and of course we will ask for a proof, like which photo is inside or something like that. We are not so stupid. So, the talk. I will talk about Burp Suite, which is a well-known proxy used for offensive purposes. And first, who I am. I have a security company, which is very small. I'm the only one employee. I'm doing a lot of... Yes, I'm the boss. I'm doing a lot of penetration testing, mostly related to web application, web services, web blah, blah, blah. And I'm not affiliated at all with Portrigger as a guy or as a company, but I love their products. I have used Burp Suite for years and other proxies before. I'm doing this kind of stuff for something like 13 years already. And I have a few warnings. First, this is not a talk about methodologies. So I will not explain how to do the recon phase and then looking for this and that. You have some very nice books on the subject. You have the chapter 21 of the web application curriculum book. Everybody should read it at least 10 times. And it's not Burp 101. So if you have no clue about what Burp Suite is, I'm sorry for you, but you will not fully get the value of this talk. And finally, everything was tested on version 1.5.11, which is not the latest one because he released one just last week, but it should work perfectly fine on the latest version. How to compare to other products? In fact, I don't care. Burp Free is too late related to Burp Pro, and Zap is open source. It's from the OWASP project. There's too many functional bugs for me to use it in professional engagements, so I will stick to Burp Pro, which is my tool of choice and where I invested in my training and everything. So sorry, but there is no clear comparison, web service here, etc., etc. Just you need to know that everything which is added to Zap and which is not in Burp Pro, we are a few guys doing some lobbying on Burp forums, and we usually get the features weeks or months later. So I have no good reason to switch to something else. So that's the point that we will cover. I have something like 100 slides, so I will probably be a little quick. I mean fast. So data visualization. We will have a lot of different formats during engagements, depending on the underlying technologies, for example. And you have a lot of formats supported by default and some others supported via extensions. This is very basic. This is the classic request. You have some get parameters here, you have some post parameters, and you have some cookies. So it's exactly the gPC thing like in PHP, get post cookie. And this is not very readable. And if you want to switch something from post to cookie, for example, you will need to take care of encoding. And if you switch to get, you have URL encoding to apply, etc. So you just switch to the params tab, and everything is much more readable. And if you click on cookie, you have a small pop-up, and you can switch to get, for example, and it will transform to a get parameter with the proper encoding and everything. So it's very easy, and it's very easy also to remove several parameters without looking for the semicolon that you will miss. So it's very practical. This is XML, so I do a lot of XML-related stuff, as you may know. This is unreadable, and you have this tab which will do some very basic presentation like tabulation and everything. AMF. This is action messaging format, or I think. This is related to Flash applications, and you can add some Python scripts doing that too. Okay. If you could shut down your phone, it would be cool. And so AMF is a mix between binary data and the clear text string. So it's somewhat readable, but you have no clue about what is. It's a string, it's an object description. And you have the AMF tab, which will do something very nice. And you have, so this is a very simple example, but if you have complex object, you have all the detail of the object, and this is very easy to read. View state, if you are in Windows technologies, okay, this is a real life view state. So it's that huge. And this is still huge, but it's more readable. You have some detail on the kind of value, and you have still some binary here and there, but it's better. Okay, so that's by default, and of course, if you have some specific needs, for example, you have a protocol which was designed for this specific application, it's impossible to find as a format supported by Burp, so you can do that via extensions, and it's very simple. I mean, I will show you later. So if you have JSON data, so this is from the Twitter API, which was just shut down 10 days ago. And so you have some JSON data, and you just need to use the extension, and it's very readable. And here it's sorted, as you can see. And so that's the kind of feature you can easily activate or not. Do you want it to be sorted because it's easier to read, or do you want to be unsorted because it's what is used by the application? So that's very easy to do. And as you can see, this is the only line of the wall extension which is related to its functionality. Everything else is creating buttons or binding action to buttons and everything. So you just need a template that you can reuse. And you have just, if you are doing a Python extension, you just have this line, and everything which is supported by default in Python, it's just one line to have your own extension supporting this format. So it's very interesting, and so if you have this kind of need, just use this extension as a template and just modify the few lines related to functionality. We have more and more JavaScript. Everybody try to obfuscate their JavaScript code just to make us harder the job of looking for DOM XSS, I think so. So this is unreadable. And we have two extensions dealing with JavaScript. Both of them are using code from the well-known botifier.org. But the first one is using Java to call Reno to call JavaScript in order to call the JavaScript API. So it's not very elegant. And the second one is a Python extension, which will call the Python library. So it's very, very clean. And that's the kind of output you will get. So that's the default version, and that's the readable version. So if you are spending your full days in this kind of stuff, you clearly will be more productive in the long run if you see this kind of content, and you don't need to think too much to looking to where will this variable start and stop and everything. It's very easy. Okay. Last one, this is protobuf, which is a Google protocol. It's used in a lot of their applications, like Google Talk, I think. And this extension allows to decode every protobuf messages. And if you provide a .proto file, which is something like the grammar, and then you can do some tampering via the extension. So if you are in this kind of stuff, it could be interesting. This is the only thing I didn't test because I have never met any protobuf application in real life, and I didn't want to set up all the needed things just to take a screenshot. So this is not my screenshot. This is the only one. Okay, that's for data visualization. Now, so what time is it? Okay. GUI navigation. So it's a GUI tool, so you have a lot of tabulation with a lot of fields and everything, and you spend your day inside that. And so a few tricks. Contextual buttons. You have everywhere in the application, you have two kinds of buttons. This one is documentation, this one is restore default, and they are contextual. So if you click here, you will have only the documentation related to temporary file location. And if you click here, you will only reset to the default value, the configuration option of this part. So it's very useful because if you have set up a lot of complicated things everywhere in Burp for doing very complicated, for brute forcing very complex applications, for example, and then you need to go back to the default value for one location, just click one button, and you're sure you will not mess all your macro settings or whatever you are tuning elsewhere. And sometimes, of course, you have no default, so you have only the help button. And if you have never pressed this button, you should try and read the wall content a few times because there's a lot of stuff in the Burp documentation, and you should really read it if you pay the license. I mean, you use some money, use some time also to be really efficient. Hotkeys, so I'm mainly a command line guy, so the mouse is mainly a way of losing time. And you have, by default, you have 90 actions which are defined, and that can be activated by a shortcut. By default, you have perhaps 30 of these actions which are configured. And so we will have a quick overview. You have everything related to copy, paste, and cut, so no mystery. You can do some encoding and decoding for URL HTML and base64 straight for your keyboard, so this is very efficient. It will start a pop-up with a decoded value. It's very it will not, not impact your workflow. It will not modify in place, so it's very, very well done. GUI navigation, you can switch from tab to tab using Ctrl-Shift. And my personal favorite is issue repeater request. So it's not defined by default, but if you are in a repeater, you are typing to your keyboard in order to sync to what you will do, and then you need to take the mouse, go to the go button, and go back to your text field to the next request. It's very inefficient, and so you define this shortcut, and you can keep your focus on the text box and Ctrl-G every time you need to test this specific request. So this is very, very useful, at least in my opinion. Okay. In Burp forums, there's often the questions like, we need the autoscroll in proxy history. I agree, but it is already there. In fact, by default, every request is added at the bottom of the proxy history because it's newer. So you have no autoscroll. You need to use your mouse and everything. But if you simply click here, you will have the same information, but in reverse order. So every new request will pop up to the top of the history, and then you have autoscroll. And it's really easy, so I have no demo for that. But as soon as some traffic go through the proxy, you see the line changing, and you have exactly what is needed for autoscroll. So it's very easy and very stupid, but it works. So that's the only thing I ask to my tools. Custom payloads. So by default, there are some payloads which are shipped with Burp Pro. You have some default user agents, default username, default password, everything. But sometimes you want to use some other lists, and you can do load and go to an external file and import an external file, but it's something like 3 or 4 mouse clicks. It's way too much. So you just need to configure from the intruder menu. You go to each directory where you put your word list and you include them all. And then you can directly from the intruder menu access to your word list with only 1 click. And so the magic combo is something like the one from Burp, then Nikto, then FuzzDB, then Deerbuster, and everything you need. You can add the RockU password list if you are in brute forcing password and everything. You do whatever you want. So you win 3 clicks. This is cool. Oh, personalized scan. So this is very few people know about this one. If you send a request to the scanner, it will automatically define the point where to inject modified value, and so it's well done. But sometimes you do not want or do not need the automatic features or intelligence of the tool, and you just need to define yourself what you want. But you still want to use the scanner functionality, which is black box and which is well done. So you send your request to intruder, you define your payload as usual, and then right click and actively scan define insertion point, and this will use the scanner logic applied only to this specific location. So you have everything you need. You have the perfect control on the location, and you have all the automatic power of scanner which is working for you. Okay, managing state. Backups. Automatic backups is useful. Why? Because if you are doing some serious hacking, I usually lost notion of time when doing this kind of stuff. So I will, of course, forget to press the save state button, and of course, my JVM will crash, and I will lose a few hours of work, and so that's shitty. So in option MISC, you have the automatic backup configuration. Just define. So every 30 minutes, I want to an auto backup. I want to store in this folder, so files are time-stamped, so you have no way to overwrite previous data. And of course, you need to check a backup on exit. This way, even if you are very, very tired and you close your Burp by mistake, you will still have your state, which is right to the file, and that you can reuse it later. Save and restore are the classic companion of the automatic backup feature. In fact, you can use it to export to your customers if your customers are advanced enough to have burps themselves. So it's very useful. You put all your proof of concept in repeater tabs, then you export, and then you send the file to the customer, which open in Burp, and then save the state, give to the engineers or pen testers, which will load it, and then they are forbid to modify the scope. So it's something like a legal protection for the company. Only the manager defines the scope area, and the pen testers are not allowed to modify it. So it's a way to use this kind of functionality. Okay. Actually, saving information about extension is buggy, but I opened a ticket last week, so it should be fixed soon. So it is buggy right now, but consider that you can also play with the extension option. Okay. So this is a few shortcuts. switching from get to post, so you find a XSS using get. Question, is it exploitable using post? So you have two solutions. Either you do it manually and you will forbid something like a new line, or spend 20 seconds thinking to how to do it. It's not efficient. So just right click, change request method, and you have this get request and you will have this post request. So everything, Burp take care of everything. You have the content type header, you have the content length with the right value, and if you need any specific encoding, I mean, if you switch to post to get, it will also take care of the specific URL encoding, so everything is perfect for you. And so you just need to think, I want to test the other way, get to post or post to get, and you do not need to think to how to do that. Use the tool. Okay, you want to run some external third-party tools which do not support proxying, or you are using a thick client which does not support proxying, and of course you still want to use Burp. And so you define a listener which have this option checked, which is support invisible proxying. And then you instruct your tool. This is Clipfish, which does not support proxy. You scan your listener, and then the listener will take care of forwarding the content to the real target, and you have everything generated by the tool, which is stored by Burp and easy to search, easy to sort, everything. So it's very easy, and the same thing for SIG client, for example. If you want to do some interception because you have a complex workflow and you want to modify a few requests, this is the way to do it, invisible proxying and working in Burp. Okay, so you are doing a pen test, you have to write a report, and then you need to get some data out of Burp to your report. So you need to export some URL. So you have a functionality which is copy URL, but it's very basic. It works only with get request and with get parameters. So no cookies, no post body, no specific headers, nothing. But you have an extension which is curlit and which will generate curl command. This is very similar to the recent features added to Chrome developer tools, that you can generate some curl commands. And of course, you can also import some URLs. So you have something in your browser, you put in your buffer, go to Burp, and pass as a request, and everything will be defined from the URL with default value for the user agent and things like that. So it's useful. And this is a sample. You have a post request with a cookie, so there's no way to use a copy URL to extract this information. So you send to the curl extension, and you have this command line. So if your customer do not use Burp, you use this functionality, and you send every proof of concept as a curl command. So everybody can set up a bootable CD with Linux, and just need to pass this command, and then you can easily reproduce your findings. Okay. Alors, so intruder payloads. I will not show every payload. There's a lot of them, just a few which are not very well known. Basic authentication, opaque data, blah, blah, blah. So basic authentication, it's very simple. It's the old way to authenticate access to web applications. You have a header, you have a word, which is basic, and you have a base64 string. And so if you press a control match B, you have this kind of pop-up, which will open, and your value and the decoded value. Okay? So I will probably not make friends with the next slide. Okay. So if you look to blogs, everybody is wrong. The way to do that is either use a prefix or suffix functionality. So the prefix is admin colon, for example, or the suffix is password or ABC123, and then you will brute force the other part. Or you use some precompiled lists that you will generate outside with your shell script or something else. But we should have a way to do it better. So you have the custom iterator payload, which is exactly what we are looking for. If you look to the documentation, it's defined 8 different positions. Each position is a list of items with an optional separator. That's perfectly enough for brute forcing HTTP basic authentication. And there's only one blog which was right. Nobody knows this blog, but this guy read the Burp documentation. Kudos. Okay, so that's the URL just to prove my points. And this is how to do it. You take your request, you highlight the base64 string, and you define one payload location. And then you have a custom iterator. You have 2 positions. The first one is a list of username with a colon in order to separate from the password. The second position is a list of password. You have one, so this is only one payload from a Burp point of view, and so you can apply post-processing to a specific payload. So you apply base64 encoding, and of course you should uncheck the payload encoding, which is checked by default, because if you don't do that, your equal characters will be encoded to %3D, and you have no way to find a valid password this way. And so this is the way to do it. And once that you understand how to, the logic behind this way to do it, you can use some other way. You still have your custom iterator. First position is username. Then second position is one single string, which is colon. Then a list of passwords. Then a list of suffix. For example, exclamation mark or some years or something else. And you keep your post-processing and encoding. And then you can get this kind of output, which is generated exactly with the previous way to do it. So you have your login, you have your password, and you have a suffix. And so in fact, you have four positions: 1, 2 for the colon, 3 for the password, and 4 for the suffix. Opaque data. So in a pen test, you met this request. So you have something, it's profile.php, you have a parameter, its name is auth, interesting, and then you have a huge blob of data. And then you have an answer which looks like you are authenticated on the application. So it's surprising. It's surprising because you have no cookies. So how could you be authenticated into the application if you have no cookies? There's a few possibilities. Either the token, this one is your cookie, but it's not in the cookie, it's in the get parameters. This is unsafe because of the referrer and everything. You should not store session ID in get parameters. Second solution, it's anti-cache mechanism, just you see like in Ajax application. But you should not be authenticated. Or third solution, this is authentication data. And this became to be interesting. Is it checked server side? If it is, it's okay. And if it's not, you have a big problem. So from the documentation, you have a payload which will cycles through a base string, 1 character at a time, incrementing the ASCII code of that character by 1. So it's very simple, but it's very powerful. So we use, we highlight this huge blob of data. We'll define the payload type as character frober and then run. And you will get some strange output. So this is extracted from the response using grep extract from the intruder options. And you will see that the name of the application will change. And then later, the UID of the user will change. And later the GID, etc., etc. So this is surprising. We are logged with UID equal 600, and previously it was 100. So clearly this is encrypted data. This is either XOR or ECB. It couldn't be CBC because it's crypto. But if it's CBC, when you modify the first state, we should modify the second one. And here we modify one value each time, so it's not CBC. And we know which part of the string which will modify the UID value. And so let's try to play on this specific portion of the string at the bit level. So this is, so we identify that this part is related to the UID. And now we use bit flipper. And we define the 8 position of each bit of a byte. And then we rerun the tool. And we see a lot of strange value, and this one is interesting. So now we have UID 0000, and it's well done. But so this is from my training I do, and this, I have a lot of exercise, and you get this one. So you didn't win a flag. It's well done, but you need UID 000 and GID 000, so you can do it further and better. But that's not the point. The point is just to show that using character flipper and then bit flipper, you can go from a huge block of data to a specific point which is related to the functionality. And last one, CSRF tokens. So it's a mess for brute forcing and using intruder and using the scanner and everything. And so we have an application which takes 2 parameters, token and value. Token is a long value, as you can see, and value is 1. And if we submit this form, we get that an information that the token is not valid, and we get the value of a valid token. I mean, I suppose it's a valid token, but it should be. And if so, it's 9CA blah blah blah. Then we use 9CA as a token, and it says that the token is valid, and then we get another value, which is 22222, and then we use 222222, and we get B34, B43, etc., etc. If you need to do that manually, it's stupid. You will spend your time copying and pasting valid session ID in repeater. It's exactly what you should not do. So, recursive grep to the rescue. From the documentation, it will extract a portion from the previous request and use it in the current request. So you get the token and you use it in your next request. That's exactly what we want to do. So pitchfork, which is a way to use different payloads. The second payload is the parameter value. That's what you want to test from your penetration testing point of view. And you will try from 0 to 50. Why not? And here you will define your anti-CSRF payload. So you define a parameter which is token, which you will use recursive grep, and then here you put a valid token for the initial step, and every other step will use the value extracted by a regular expression from the previous request. And it works perfectly well. And I may have a demo depending, I may do a demo later at the end if I still have some time, or if I'm too late, I could do it later, I mean around a beer or something. So, problems. This only works if the token is inserted in the result page. So if you have a formula, a form which doing the presenting the form and displaying the results, this is the right scenario to use this kind of string, this kind of mechanism. And you must use only one thread. Because if you use more than one thread, you will kill your token as soon as you fetch it, so it will not work. But this is similar if you use a macro-based solution in order to bypass this kind of tokens. But this solution is twice faster than macro-based counterpart. So I just did some benchmark just a few hours ago, and depending on how you set up your macro, you could be 2 or 3 times slower than using recursive grep. So it's really interesting to use this kind of stuff. And plus, a lot of guys are afraid of macros. So that's a way to brute force CRSF protected forms without using macros. And that's the output. So as you can see, we extract some values here, and we use them as the next request. So that's exactly what we are looking for. And then somewhere you will hit the value 33, and then you will win a flag. So you win, and you need to go to the next step. So I have a demo, but maybe later. Mobile applications. We have more and more mobile applications to test. A few tricks. Traffic redirection. So you are using, for example, Android smartphone, which is rooted, and you still want to use your usual workflow and toolbox. So you set up a proxy listener, which is listening on a public interface. I mean public on your testing network, not public on the internet, which could be dangerous. If people can access your burp listener, it's not a good thing for you. Okay, read the documentation, it's explained. So you install the application, which is ProxyDroid, and you configure to redirect to your burp instance. And you can use app-specific or global proxying to burp. And do not forget to check DNS proxy, which is not checked by default, but which will be useful later. So that's listening on all interfaces, including the LAN 1. And this is a ProxyDroid. Oh, sorry, it's in French, for people not reading French. So that's the browser. So you will do app-specific proxying. You will proxy the browser, and you will redirect to your remote burp instance. And the DNS option is somewhat lower, but you need to check it. And then you see this kind of request in your burp proxy. So it's from the smartphone, and so you hit your goal. You have every traffic coming from the smartphone to your burp instance and going to the target application. And that's why it's useful to check the DNS proxy option. If you are resolving DNS via your proxy, and that your proxy is burp, you can use some specific built-in request, HTTP burp. And for example, you can browse your proxy history from the outside using this kind of URL. And so it's exactly the same request here and there. And that's one of the risks, but not the most dangerous one, of exposing your burp listeners to the outside world. Okay, so mobile applications are using SSL, which is a good thing, but which is not very good for us, because we are doing some brute forcing. And so we get this kind of behavior. We have a website, but we have a red cross. This is not a good thing. And if you want to start Google Play or Google Store or Play Store, this is Play Store, it will not load because it will verify the certificate, and the certificate is not good, so no way to debug your connection to Play Store. So every burp installation comes with its own certificate authority. So do not use the certificate from somebody else. Use your own. And you can go to your proxy listener options and export in there. So if you are through the GUI, but you will get a file on your testing machine. Or you can use your browser if you are doing DNS proxying. You just need to hit this URL and you will download the Burp CA certificate. So it's a very convenient way to bring the certificate to your mobile device. Then you rename from there to CRT, so no need for any complicated OpenSSL command. I never remember these tricky commands. I always need to have a Google helping me. And then, depending on your Android version, you can just touch the file, or you can go to parameter security install from SD card, and then you have your Burp certificate, which is included in the recognized authority, and then you get this kind of behavior. So you can debug Google Play, and you can have your SIG application, which is happy with the certificate. And this is the first request you get when opening Google Play, so you can spend your time diving in what is possible and what is not in this kind of online web store. But it's forbidden. Okay. How much time? Ouch. Okay. So, faster. By default, some browsers do not have some built-in developer tools, which is a shame. For example, iPhone and iPad. I don't care, except when I'm looking for XSS. So Firebug have a version which is Firebug Lite, which is JavaScript only. And so you can load it in your browser and use the start opened equal true option. And then you will have a Firebug in every browser, including your iPad. It seems a good idea to use the match and replace functionality, but it will not work because Firebug Lite itself will include the head tag that you will use as your marker, so you will have an infinite loop. This is not what you are looking for. But I have coded a very small extension, which is a JavaScript injector, and that you can use to do a few things like starting Firebug Lite, but also it works well with BIF, which is a XSS framework, or Autopon from Metasploit if you can man in the middle your client, for example, in an internal penetration testing test when you are playing RP or DNS or WPAD tricks in order to to man in the middle some clients. And okay, so that's a mobile browser, and then this is Akin Paris website, and I have a Firebug Lite which is loaded, and so I can inspect the DOM and looking for microservice scripting strings and everything. Extensions. So as a few resources related to extensions, you should read everything before coding your own. So extension which could be useful, external formats, we see this one, WCF, WSL, you can generate a request from your own WSL file, which is a feature that we are waiting for long, but it's available through an extension. You can use some external tools. You can derive a SQL map from Burp, for example. You can a few things like Burp notes, which allow to take notes inside Burp. So if, for example, your customer allows you to only have one jar to bring to their testing machine, you can have one jar and have everything, including a way to take notes. Custom logger, it's very, very useful if you want to debug your extensions. I wrote a few ones. So HTTP traceroute is in order to identify reverse proxies. I wrote a command line tool, something like, I don't know, I published it maybe last year or the year before. Nmap includes the functionality from my script, but it's very badly done. The logic is wrong and everything. But if you are in Burp, you have everything, your user agent, which could be very specific. Only this kind of mobile smartphone can use this feature. And then you have all the details working from Burp, and you use this extension to add one header, which is the max forward header, and most of the job is analyzing responses in order to identify if a web service, if a reverse proxy was found or not. Okay, so I think it's better to use the Burp extension than the command line tool, than the Nmap script, if you have a Burp license, of course. Okay, that's the kind of output. So it's interesting because I provide the extension, but Burp still provide all the interface, the way to generate your report, and you can also use a comparer to see from your own, make your own decision, or if the tool is right or wrong regarding the fact that reverse proxy was found. So this is generating a SOP request from a WSDL. This is taking notes in Burp. Now with a spreadsheet. This is free text, and this is CSV-like. Voila, that's for users. For developers, a few points. You have 3 ways to write Java Burp's extensions. Java, which is the best way to do it if you like Java. I do not like Java. So Python, my personal choice because I'm fast using Python, but beware, Python is not JSON. So if you are, even if you are experienced coder in Python, you will have some problem using the Java API. And Ruby, you have the same drawbacks than Python, but I do not know Ruby, so I stick to Python. And this is the kind of problem that you will have if you play with Python. You have a Java API, and we choose some list of array of integers, and then you will have to do this kind of trick, like using array.array, and you can't use the built-in features of Python. So once you know it, it's not complicated, but you will find this kind of problem when writing your first extensions. If you are developing, you will need to quickly reload your extensions, and then if you click here, with control click, it will reload. So you will unload and reload your extension with only 1 click. So you don't need to unload, wait 1 second, click load, wait 1 second. It's way easier. And this is custom logger. So this is the only way I know to see every traffic generated by Burp, event spider, scanner, and extensions. So if you are doing some serious debugging, it's mandatory. Please note that if you are debugging macros, you have a specific tools for macros. Macros, nice way to switch. So just macros are quite complicated to introduce, so I have just a demo. And I hope I have enough time. I hope so. Pas trop, no. So the answer is so-so. So I will just give a teaser right now, and if you are interested, come back later and elsewhere. So we have an application which needs authentication, login and password. The sessions are lasting for 15 seconds, and you have a form that you need to browse first. So you want to use your usual way, usual tools like repeater, intruder, and scanner. And this is very easy to do. And you could add that the form is protected by anti-CSRF token, and it's still doable. Everything is doable. So that's how the application works. You have a login form which displays the form if it's a GET request, which processes the form if it's a POST request. Very easy username and password. And you have another page, which is your target, and which will propose a form, and the value you need to find to get the flag is between 1 and 100, and so every 15 seconds you have your session which is invalidated, and you need to log in back and go resume your testing. So this is a debugger specific to extensions, to macro. It's very, very useful, but it's very resources hungry, so just activate it when you need to debug your extension, your macro, but not when you will run them on a large scale. And you get this kind of content. So this is related to my demo. I check if the session is valid, the session is invalid, so I will log as user 33, and I will get the cookie, the new authenticated cookie. I will add it to my macro request and issue my request. And so, for example, it means that you are in repeater, and you can just focus on the value you want to submit, and everything is all the authentication and cookie and all this stuff, CSRF, is delegated to the macro, and you just need to focus to your functional target, which is this form with value from 1 to 100. It should be less than 2 minutes to do. Okay, and so no macro, no demo, I mean, and this is the end of the talk. And thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, you are welcome now or later. Thank you. Question?
Coming.
Could you talk briefly about the scanner vulnerability function of Burp?
What's my opinion regarding the scanner functionality?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it's the main difference between the Pro version and the free version.
Okay. There's more difference than that. I mean, from a functional point of view, it's already sufficient to switch to the Pro version. You have a non-time limitation on the intruder features, for example, which is you have some limitation in the free version. And regarding the scanner functionality, I usually use it, but do not rely on it too much. I mean, sometimes bugs are too complicated or not technical bugs, but logic bugs. There's no way the scanner will find it. But it's still, I mean, for 300 euros a year, it's still interesting to get this sent to scanner and get this job done. It already find a few SQL injection or XSS I missed manually. So because I didn't spend so much time, it was user application and short engagement. So it's not a silver bullet. So I still rely on my own work, but it's useful. Another question? Thank you.